What's going on, guys? Big welcome to you all to our channel. We are Team Crushing the Meta, and you're with D-Boy. I'm here for you guys with a deck profile or another Spike Brother deck profile for standard. So we have already focused on Bull Spike, right? We have a lot of deck profiles on our channel that focus on Bull Spike. I have two links for you guys in the description section below. One of them is a long deck profile, about 40 minutes, and in that deck profile I explained everything there is to know about that deck and why I built it the way I built it. And the other link is a short deck profile, about 8 minutes, and that is the same deck but the upgraded version of it, and it's just going fast through the deck and explaining a little bit less about it. In this deck profile we will focus on the other decks that you could make for Spike Brothers when it comes to standard. If you're a Spike Brother fan like me, sometimes you have some cards in your binder that you still want to use, which you don't really use. And in this deck profile, we will use some of them, and maybe in the future, we will make more deck profiles where we could use all of them, right? So when it comes to Spike Brothers, there are two cards that you could focus on as being your main grade 3. Some would say that Bad and Dragger is also one of them. Could agree, but for me, Bad and Dragger will always be a support grade 3 that could support the Bull Spike deck, or it could be a main grade 3 if you're playing premium, because he is really good in premium. But when it comes to standard, these are the two boss grade 3s, let's say, that you have in your deck. We have already focused on Bull Spike, so we will take the Bull Spike out, and now we will focus on the General Seifried. When it comes to General Seifried, there are other grade 3s that you could run to make the deck stronger, right? You have Juggernaut Maximum, you have Gunwolf, and you have the Grandmobile. These are the other grade 3s that you could run with the General Seifried to make a deck around that. First, I tried the Grandmobile, which was the card that is the most promising. But a problem with this card is that it needs to have a copy of it in your soul. And by doing that, you need to activate the skill of Ronaldo, Gyroslinger, or Seifried himself. But if you do that with Ronaldo or Gyroslinger, then you don't know if you're getting Grandmobile back, so most of the time you will do it with the skill of the General Seifried. But because he costs the Counterblast himself, which is the most stupid thing about this card, is costing a Counterblast, that would mean that you're giving up a 20k on your field, a 10k on your General Seifried, and another 10k on another Rearguard. So that would mean that you could call the Grandmobile, it would be a 23 attacker, which is kind of good because it could attack twice, but it's still a 15k shield for your opponent if you're going Force 2, because this deck loves to go Force 2. So that's why I took the Grandmobile out. Another reason is it doesn't have a marker, so when you ride into it, it does nothing. If it had a Vanguard skill and a marker, then I could understand this card, because then you could ride into it and the next turn you ride into Seifried or something else and you already have it in the soul, but it does not work like that. So the other grade 3s that we are focusing on is the Juggernaut and the Gunwolf. When it comes to these two cards, you would say, hey, you could put both of them in the same deck. Well, you could, but then you're facing a small problem, which is, let's say that you're running the 4 copies of the General Seifried. Then what you want to do is you want to run at least 3 copies of Juggernaut Maximum. And when it comes to Gunwolf, you need at least 2, right? That could be it. You could also run 3, but we're saying at least. So your lineup would look like this. What's the problem with this lineup? Well, the big problem with this lineup is that your General Seifried is the only right target. Riding the Juggernaut Maximum is alright, but riding the Gunwolf is, you don't want to do that. And that would mean you're focusing too much on the General Seifried. Also, on your first right target, you have a less of a strong turn, because then you have only one marker on one side of the field than the attack of General Seifried himself. So after a while testing this deck with this lineup, I ended up with taking the Gunwolf out because he really didn't add that much to the deck. And then what I put in the deck is actually 2 copies of Bull Spike. Bull Spike actually made the deck complete as being your first right target, because what you want to do is you want to go Bull Spike, right? And then you want to create that Force 2 marker. And then you want to have 2 strong attackers on the field like this, and of course some boosters behind them. Then you attack with the bull spike first, then you move the marker on this side, and then you attack, and then you move the marker on the other side, and then you attack, right? So when you end your turn, if they destroy these two, doesn't really matter. You restand on the next turn, you will write now into the General Seifried, and that's when you create the second marker. Because this marker is already on a regular circle, not a Vanguard circle, that's good. This is what you want to have, because now they need to guard all 3 attacks, right? Because they attack for 2 damage, then if he hits, he would restand, and if he hits, they will take another 2 damage. So that's pretty much the idea behind the deck, is you're going to bull spike first, then you're going to the General Seifried. But even if you go for General Seifried and you don't have the bull spike, that's still good, because then you attack with this, hit them for 2 damage, attack with that, they need to guard this, otherwise this would restand. And you pretty much from that moment on, you're creating a big headache for your opponent to deal with those attacks. So again, for the grade 3 lineup, we are running the 4 copies of the General Seifried, and then the support grade 3 this time is actually the bull spike. So it's the other way around than the other deck, and then we have the 3 Juggernaut Maximum. In the other deck, you have the 3 Bad and Dragger, 3 bull spike, and 2 General Seifried. So that's the difference. It's kind of the same lineup, but in different numbers. For the grade 2 lineup, we now have the 4 copies of Bracky, 4 copies of Detonate Burl, and then 3 copies of Needle. We play only 11 grade 2s, and as you can see, there is no Spike Monsters and also no Ronaldos. Okay, Spike Monster is a card that gives you advantage on your opponent by the Counterblast and Assault Blast you call something. So if you're really missing Spike Monster, then I advise you to take out the 3 Needle to put the Spike Monster in here. Me myself, I didn't really miss him, because this deck, for every Counterblast that you have, you're getting 20k on your field because of the General Seifried. So there is really no reason to focus a lot on the Spike Monster, where cards like Needle, cards like Bracky, cards like Detonate Burrow will get that extra 10k power, which means I will show you at the end of the video the crazy lineups that you make with this deck. When we go to the grade 1 lineup, we start with the 4 copies actually of Punter, then we add in 4 copies of Wonder Boy. Okay, Punter is an important card to have in this deck because you have the soul, so you could afford using him each turn, make a perfect column with the Juggernaut Maximum, and at the same time he will go back to your deck, leaving an empty regular circle behind him, which is good, but he also gives you the card back to your hand. The Wonder Boy is because you are playing cards that you need to have 4 copies of, or at least 1 more copy of in your deck, because you are using the General Seifried skill. So that's why he could help to put the Detonate Burl or the Bracky or the Juggernaut back to your deck, especially Juggernaut because you're only playing 3 copies and sometimes you need a 4th one. And the Juggernaut is the biggest attacker when it comes to this deck, because he will be a 33 by himself by the ability of the General Seifried. And when Seifried will hit, this is the card that you want to restand, because again, it's a 33 by himself, and that's why we run the boy at 4. For the other great ones that we have in this deck, we are actually running 3 copies of Gyroslinger and 2 copies of Angela. Angela, I have to give a shout out right here to a friend of mine, which is Eduardo Castillo. So he helped me out with getting the Triple R Angela promo, because I ended up with having only the commons, and so yeah, definitely a shout out to him. But Angela in this deck is way better than I expected her to be, because when she boosts a grade 2, she will be exact amount number, so that's why she's very good. She gets extra 10k if you have let me read to have the skill right. So if there are 2 cards that are put into your soul or your spirit right 2 times, and you get that very fast and often, like each turn, especially if you're using the General Seifried skill. So that's why she is very good in this deck. And as I said at the end of the video, I will show you the crazy columns that you could make with this deck. So Angela, as the flavor text said, she's kind of your secret weapon. For the trigger lineup, we play the 4 draw being the PGs, being Merlin, and then the 4 tiaras being your heals. And for the other criticals or triggers, we actually still run the 8 crits. Pretty much up to you if you want to run draws. I could understand that. I could understand at least you want to play 1 more draw. It's pretty much up to you. I felt like having those crits in my deck, it feels better. Also, just a 15k shield, and it does help a lot to crit your opponent at least once in the early game. But if you want to take a crit out to play 1 draw, I think that would be a very, very, very good choice. Maybe I will do that myself with more testing, but I am feeling very comfortable with this. One more important thing that you need to do, you don't have to follow this exact lineup. You actually want to run a 4th Silent Joker, but this is kind of my my favorite lineup to do, in which I do as long as I play 8 crits in standard. I play 4, 3, 1, but I would advise you to take out the Sonic Break to run 1 more Silent Joker, because you will have more copies of a card in your deck, and even a crit is sometimes good to call with Seifried because you still gain more power on your field. So again, pretty much up to you. Your Sonic Break could become a draw trigger, it could become a Silent Joker, it could become anything. I like to play it as a Silent Joker because I like to see the situations where it's good to be a crit, or it should have been better if this was a draw. So this does help me a lot while testing, and for now he felt better being a crit than a draw, so that's why he's still in here. That's actually it for the deck. As I explained at the start of the deck profile, of course we still have the starter, which is Mega Trainer. We can't play anything else for now. So as I explained at the beginning of the video, the way that the deck works is while you have your Bull Spike as a first right target, and then you have the 2 force markers, and with that you are creating the biggest pressure that you could make in Spike with the standards in general. And what you want to do is you want to have your Juggernaut Maximum on the one side, and cards like Bracky, Needle, or the Detonate Barrel on the other side, because these become a 30k attackers with the skill of Seifried. Okay, so let's get some dices and let's just get into it. First of all, let's say that you have 2 Counterblast to work with, which is understandable. So what you want to do is, let's have 3 dices, right? And these 3 dices will help us to accomplish our goal of explaining the power. Okay, so let's say on this side you have the Juggernaut Maximum. That's the side that you want to have Pinter on. In the middle doesn't really matter because your Seifried already hits for a high number, but if you want to put a booster behind him, it would be an offensive Pinter again. And on this side, that's where the Angela would have to be, because the Angela will gain the extra 10k. Alright, so it doesn't really matter which of these grade 2s you have on this side. Having the Detonate Barrel is of course the best thing you could have because he draw you a card. So let's say that you have him right here. Okay, you have 2 Counterblasts to work with. So what will happen is that Pinters, if you call them with C3, that's good, but you don't really have to. You want to call your attackers. So you will activate the skill of C3 to put the Detonate Barrel into your soul to call a new one. And that's when the Detonate Barrel will gain an extra 10k, right? And C3 will gain 10k as well. But then you use the skill of C3 on the Juggernaut as well. Put him into your soul, so you get a 20k. And then you gain, or you get a second Juggernaut. And the Juggernaut will get a 10k from himself and a 10k from C3. So that would put him at 20k. And that's when Angela will get the extra 10k. Okay, so this is your field. Depends if you have 1 or 2 copies of Barrel in your soul. If you have 2, then you attack with this first. If you have 1, then you attack with this first. What you do is, you attack with the Juggernaut Maximum, you still boost him by the offensive Pinter. Even if your opponent has 3 damage, you boost him because you don't know if this attack will hit or not. So you boost him, you activate the skill, and now you would Soul Blast something like the Juggernaut that you could put back with a Wonder Boy. So he goes back to your deck, and then he gains an extra 2k. Means this is 10, 20, 30, 43. A 43 attack right there. Then he goes back and you draw a card. So that's one card on hand, right? Let's put that right here. One card on hand. Then you will attack with this. You boost him. You activate the skill again. Soul Blast something, which is not the Detonate Barrel. You get an extra 2k. So this is 10, 20, 30, 43. Again, E43 attack. And at the end of the battle, he goes back to deck. You draw one more card. And then when you attack with Detonate Barrel, Detonate Barrel will of course gain another 10k. Means this is 30, 40, 48 without triggers. And then you Soul Blast to draw one more. And you draw 3 right there. Right? That's amazing. With your Tribe Check, you're gaining 5 cards by having this formation from your field. So again, it's just a very offensive deck, and it makes it very huge columns. So yeah, it's pretty much up to you. As I said, if you have 2 copies of Detonate Barrel in your soul, you could attack with this column first, maybe boosted, maybe unboosted. If you think your opponent is taking the damage anyway, don't boost him, but still you draw. And this would still be a 30k attack, so still be a 20k shield for them to have to give up. But usually I just like to attack with the Juggernaut first, because again, this is 25k shield for them even if he restands. And that's actually it for this deck profile. I'd like to thank you all for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this deck profile and you enjoy playing cards that you don't play that much. Again, you could add the Gun Wolf into the deck by just taking out cards like the Bull Spike to just add this in there. It's up to you. I find him really good, but less good than Bull Spike. And Bull Spike being 2 more cards that you want to ride into, giving the deck 6, let's say, right targets, makes it actually way better than having only the 4 right targets, which being the General Seifried. Also, sometimes you could switch back to Force 1. If you are feeling that this is a matchup that you don't want to go Force 2, you just go Force 1, right? You ride the Juggernaut first, or you ride into the Seifried first, you put a little pressure on your opponent, and then after that you go and ride into Bull Spike, and then you go Force 1. So yeah, that's it. Again, thanks guys for watching. Until next time.